So let's have some fun. Let's talk about possible selection changes for round 2 of the Rugby Championship. I'm going to stick to the Springboks and the All Blacks because those are the teams that I selected before the Championship started. The Springboks obviously starting with their really strong win against Australia. They probably could have scored more. They would have wanted to execute it maybe a bit better, but it was a fairly easy win. Didn't really break out of second gear. So you could just play the same team again, of course. You know, there's the old adage, don't change a winning team, which sounds good, but actually isn't really true because sometimes teams that win can get better and there's other reasons to play different players. But anyway, I'm going to go through some possible changes. Don't freak out if I come up with all these changes here. These are just ones to consider, and then I'll go for my final selection and let me know what yours would be. Front row wise, well, they did fantastic, didn't they? Scrummaging, which is the primary job of those front row, of the props especially, they absolutely smashed it. Malherbe was on fire, and Che, obviously, one of the best props around, maybe the best prop around, as I always say. On the bench, Steenkamp Koch did absolutely great, but I still think there might be room for Thomas Tutoy to come in there. I think he's that good. Obviously, I'm a fan of watching him, but I really think he's worth a go. Koch won't go on forever, so Tutoy, I think, probably comes in for me. I think that's a fairly decent shout there. There were some funny goings on in the second row, some last-minute injuries, some smaller injuries, but Pieter-Steph Tutoy had to stand in a second row and did a fantastic job. But I don't think you say he has to stay there just because they won the game. Ideally, you want to get him back to that blind side, to the number 7 shirt for South Africa. Snyman, I think, had a minor injury. Norgay as well. He could have been playing. Morahi could have been playing as well. But I think Snyman is the man if he's fit. Then Etzebeth and Snyman, that would be pretty much the way I'd go there. Khaleesi staying there at open side, the captain. He's been inspired ever since coming back from Racing 92, where the owner chewed him out there. I mean, French owners, rich owners do this sort of thing, and he's just taken the decision to say, well, sod that. We'll leave their money, we'll come back home to South Africa where I'm loved, play for the Sharks in South Africa and actually enjoy my life. And goodness me, he really looks like that is the right decision for him, although he doesn't play the full game, still playing really well. So yeah, I think Pieter-Steph Tutoy ideally will slot back into that blindside role. Elric Lowe had a really good game, very good all-rounder. I thought maybe not as explosive as I would have liked, but I'm just picking at holes here because I'm looking for that next great number 8 for South Africa. In the 9 shirt, I think you definitely stay with the 2 scrum halves, although you could reverse them. You could have Williams starting, Reinach on the bench, but either way round, I don't think it's too much of a problem. Fly half, Feinberg Magomazulu, I thought had a really good game. After his bad kick at the start, he really grew into it. So I think you probably stay him. You do consider Pollard because he's that good. And it could be a case of rotating them, getting them both game time. You don't just want Pollard sitting there on the bench, not playing a lot. And I think there is an option there to think about playing a 10-12, a double playmaker. Maybe then you don't have LaRue at fullback and you have Fassi at fullback, because it would be great to see Fassi at some point, but certainly something to consider. I don't think you start with it, but do you then go to a Pollard at 12 as they did, or a Magomazulu to 12 and Pollard to 10 and really zip that ball around? That extra running threat. Deolande was fine, but I don't think he has to play. So of course at centre you do have Am back fit, so it would be good to see him at some point, but Creel's playing so well there. I mean, he maybe was fairly quiet until he made that amazing break at the end. His footwork was phenomenal. His vision to link up with Arinza was brilliant. And the wingers, as we mentioned, Arinza is absolutely on fire with his pace and his footwork. And maybe Cheslin Colby is the best all-round back in the world at the moment. He could play at 15, could play at 10, and he'd kick a goal quite happily if they asked him. He's that good, and they know he's good. They're getting his hands on the ball a lot more straight from the off, so that was great to see. And as this Tony Brown attack evolves, hopefully we see these backs interchanging even more. Some of those offloads from the forwards that we know they can do, and then they'd really be popping. So yeah, Dutoy may be coming in on the bench. Who's the second row replacement? Well, it depends on fitness. Van Staden maybe stays, maybe he doesn't. So it all depends a little bit on fitness there. Pollard probably staying on the bench for now, but you could argue make a rotation to give him game time and start. So this is the team that I go with. Only a few changes. Snyman coming in. Pieter-Steph Tutoy then hopefully going back to his blindside slot. And Thomas Tutoy, Norgay and Dixon on the bench there. So a little bit of shuffling, and hopefully they can play even better than before. It'd be really great to see these guys cut loose and really nail everything. Then on to the All Blacks, who know they have their backs up against the wall, because this wasn't just a lucky break for Argentina. They had a great all-round game, as I mentioned in my match report. They could absolutely beat them again if New Zealand don't pull their finger out and play a lot better. Does that involve a lot of changes? Well, maybe. I think they're still looking around to try and find what their strongest squad is, and I don't think we'll see their strongest 23 for a while, to be honest. We've got injuries and things like that. So considering changes in the front row, well, I think I'd consider changes on the bench. I'd stick with De Groot, Taylor and Lomax. They were pretty unlucky not to have a scrum in a whole first hour of the game, and I thought they'd be pretty good there, so we didn't really see that, so give them a whirl. Indeed, when Amua came on, he lost a couple of line-outs, which can be his Achilles heel. You don't know how much fault it is of the hooker, of course, losing a line-out, but he's an impact player. But you could say maybe Bell gets a chance, the one capper, but I think maybe stick with Amua. But certainly Williams and Tossie, they're waiting there in the wings, two giant young props. Williams coming on a loose head, Tossie at tight head. I think that could be an amazing 1-2 punch coming off the bench. So I think that's worth a go. No, Tuingafasi, Newell, they're still good players, but it's worth seeing these new guys. I think they're that good. Second row wise, I don't think we've got Scott Barrett back. That's a good conversation when he comes back, where he comes back into the team, because he's the captain. To Pluto, is he going to be fit? If he is, I think maybe he comes in for a bit of extra bulk, a bit of extra ball carrying. Vai and Darry did fairly well. Darry, I think, definitely looks like an exciting find. At 6, though, did it really work? Blackadder, Papali'i, both hard workers, maybe lacking that big ball carrying, a little bit of game breaking ability. So maybe Finau comes back into it. Maybe Jacobson, who plays blindside as well. So I think there is definitely a chance for a change there. It was certainly worth having a look at Blackadder, but it doesn't look like he's quite at that top level just from that one viewing. Maybe he goes again, I don't know, but I think I would change and go back to Finau, who of course played so well in July. I thought he looked pretty good there. A bit more of a more aggressive ball carrier, maybe better in the line out. So maybe Finau, Papali'i, Surveyor. Surveyor, of course, made that horror pass at the end, but apart from that, he did some really good stuff, as he always does. Now, there's been plenty of calls for Mackenzie to be dropped completely. I think that's a little bit rash. Plus, who do you bring in? Do you bring in Beauden Barrett? That seems to be the obvious call. You could do that, Beauden Barrett to 10, and then Jordan to 15. Could make sense, but I think Mackenzie is a really good player. Apart from that one horror decision to fling that long pass at the end, I think he actually played pretty well, but that mistake was so bad you could say maybe he goes completely and Beauden Barrett goes to 10. There's other players that could play 10. You could have Perifetta go in there. You haven't got other players like Plummer, they're not in the squad, so there are other options, and maybe Richie Mwanga does come back at some point, but I still think Mackenzie offers plenty, but obviously he's going to have to be a bit more sensible at times. In the centres, Geordie Barrett definitely was quiet. He tried to affect the game and couldn't. There was one that sticks in my mind where he tried to do a chip and go like Mackenzie, and he just gave the ball away and got stepped really easily. Looks just to be struggling to make that impact. Leonard Brown looks full of life and power and everything. He could move to 12. That is a possibility. Leonard Brown to 12, Proctor to 13, or Ioane back to 13. So I think you could definitely jiggle around with those centres, because I don't think Geordie Barrett has really said, I have to stay there. He's a very talented player, but it's just not happening at the moment, not on form. Winger-wise as well, I do think you need to change it up. I wouldn't have gone with Talea and Reese. I maybe would have gone with Talea and Clark, or Talea and Jordan. Talea, I think, does stay because he scored the try. He's very slippery. You could try and change them both, but I still think Clark's power is very useful. And if Will Jordan is fit, he is one of the best players around. Creates stuff, really fast, good under the high ball, which they struggle to get any sort of kick ball back. And they actually gave one away, re-slapped one back and gave a try away, which was costly. So Jordan could be good there for the kick chase as one thing, or maybe you bring him into 15 and push Barrett back as the impact sub. That's definitely a change you can make. There's just so many options here to think of. Whizzing back to 9, because I didn't complete that one, I think you play Ratimer. I think you go Ratimer, Mackenzie, the Chiefs guys together. Ratimer is the future. Perinara is still a decent player, but maybe it's the time, to rip that band-aid off, to make the change. Ratimer starting and young Hotham on the bench, the under-20s captain, the ex-under-20s captain. He is a really class act. And then, of course, when Roygaard comes back, maybe those three are the three scrum halves of the future. So I think there's nothing to lose there. Go with Ratimer at 9 and really go for it. Try and create a bit of chaos. They went through their systems fine in attack, but it didn't stress the Argentinians. The chaos wasn't there in general open play. They tried to push it a bit too much on transition and got intercepted a few times. So that general open play attack does need to be better. And I think the likes of Ratimer, maybe Leonard Brown to 12, Proctor to 13, Jordan involved, I think that could make a bit of a difference. So on the bench, if Jordan is starting, maybe you have Love on the bench, Proctor on the bench, something like that. That's an interesting one. So this is how I would go. I would make some changes. Finau in at 6, Ratimer at 9, change the midfield, bring Jordan in to 14, Clark onto the bench for some power. The young props there of Williams and Tossie as impact. Young Hotham, Georgie Barrett dropping to the bench to cover 15 and 12. And absolutely go for it with a little bit more zip in attack, a bit more execution. And of course, Mackenzie's going to have to be a little bit smarter at times as well. So those are the changes I would consider and make for the Springboks and for the All Blacks. Let me know what you would make down below. Like, subscribe, that would be awesome. I really enjoy following the Rugby Championship, even as an Englishman, and I appreciate all those great comments below, helping me out and giving me those opinions. It's brilliant stuff. Keep it coming, and I will catch you next time.